Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the AWS Summit in Los Angeles. We are on twitch.tv/AWS OnAir and also on YouTube. But we are live here at the Summit with a few of my friends. First, my name, Aaron Hunter, Principal Developer Advocate with the Training Certification Team. And we have...
Do I have a name? Was I given a name?
You were not. We also have Litin over here, right? Litin is working with... Nitin.
Yes.
Nitin. Not AI, not ML?
No, not AI, not ML.
I'm
Okay.
AM.
Just very simple, Nitin.
Okay, so we have AM
I'm
and
AM.
Nitin,
Yes.
and we're here to talk all about Amazon Q data integration in AWS Glue, and they're going to be using build data integration pipelines using natural language processing.
You got it.
We got Q and we got Glue.
And we got AM.
Have there been a better pairing since peanut butter and jelly?
Yes, we do.
Discuss.
We have Q, and we have Glue, and we have AM, and we have U.
Wow. Poems.
Holmes. So what is this natural language processing using Q and Glue?
You know, first, let's give readers, our folks, a little bit of information of what the hell is Glue.
Sure. All right. Let's start there.
What is Glue?
Glue is nothing but a simple data ingestion and processing service. It's a data integration service that allows you to take your data from different sources, ingest it, process it, and then integrate it and load it into various engines. And this is the basic thing you do for any sort of AI, ML, and analytics processing.
Because you have all your data, you need to be able to aggregate that data, and then if you have a machine learning or some kind of generative AI model, large language model,
Correct.
you have to train your data on that, and Glue can help you catalog that and store it and separate it.
You got it. And you know, the quality of any analytical result or AI training is all dependent on the quality of your data. And this is where Glue comes in. That
The quality of my data is always terrible.
you need Glue then.
Okay, the internet runs off Excel files, you know.
I thought it was tubes. Somebody said it was tubes. Anyway, so listen,
Yes.
I'm organizing a lot of data. What does Glue give me when I'm trying to organize all that data?
Essentially, what it's giving you is data in a very structured format where you can essentially solve your business problem. Like, for
Okay.
instance, you know, you got all this raw sales data coming in from different outlets.
I do. I
Yes.
make a lot of sales.
You
You're
do?
right.
Yes.
Tons. Absolutely.
And all this raw data, now you want to essentially know that, you know, from which city am I getting the maximum number of sales?
Okay,
So what Glue helps you do is, it helps you take this raw data, and let's say you can ingest it into Redshift,
Yes.
and then you can do a SQL query in Redshift that select the city with the maximum sales.
because Redshift you can do like a lot of query, a lot of powers. It's a data warehouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I've noticed people who work a lot with data, they like structure. That seems to be a thing that they crave.
Correct.
Now, the other thing that I've noticed about people who work with data a lot is they're constantly querying that data. They're trying to get answers from that data.
Correct.
And you mentioned Redshift. There's all kinds of different systems that they're querying.
Uh-huh.
There's different, oftentimes we see SQL, right? Like
Squeal.
that's kind of a. I'm gonna move past that. We see a lot of different querying languages, things like that. You may have to, come across multiple
Correct.
different ways of querying the data. Where does Q come into this? I'm assuming it sits somewhere within that querying power, right? Or is it more?
Is that
it,
what Q stands for, querying?
No, I
Okay.
don't believe so. I
Okay.
don't think it stands for Q.
Got it.
Amazon Q.
Okay.
Q is a generative AI assistant,
Right.
right? And Q essentially helps you reimagine the way you do software development processes. That's what essentially Q developer is. And in this whole data integration journey that we have, we're essentially marrying Q and data with data integration capabilities. So we make it easier for our customers to start taking this data and creating these data pipelines without having to know how to do it. You specify your intent, like, I want this data which is in S3, and I want to move it into Redshift.
Yeah.
And Q will essentially help you generate that code which will do all of that.
Okay.
So it's almost like a companion.
It's like a
Or-
companion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So it can help me develop. It can help me develop and build faster.
that's true.
It can help me break my own writing blocks by understanding how services work.
Correct.
It can help me understand how AM thinks
No, nothing can
No,
help you.
No?
you're going too far.
Okay, all right.
Nothing can help with that. There's
Can-
not a single service on the planet.
Can Matt from the AWS Glue team in the chat help our customers learn in the chat?
Absolutely, you
Okay.
can.
So, hey, chat, if you're watching live, ask your questions in the chat. We do see them. Oh, I don't know if AM does.
I do. I got it pulled up too. I've got
Okay,
chat.
AM has it pulled up. Do you have
I
it-
was
do you have it
talking
pulled up,
about you
Nathan?
in chat, Aaron.
I don't see that.
I
There,
said
there
you're
you are.
in
Aaron's
Dallas
in Dallas. Okay,
a lot.
we are in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can answer your questions about Glue and Q and Nitin. How does, question for you,
Yeah.
what can Amazon Q data integration do?
That's what I was curious about too, Nitin. Is
I thought you were going to say you were going to ask that question.
well, I use Amazon Q, me primarily
Yes.
in VS Code, right?
Mhm.
I'm a dev, so I'm writing code a lot. I'm very familiar with Amazon Q in VS Code specifically. Now, when you put that integration into Glue with
Yes.
Q, now is Q aware of the data residing in the data catalog? What's going on? What is the integration there?
The integration is with our Glue Studio.
Okay.
So as a customer, you first go into Glue Studio, and in Glue Studio, essentially you can ask you questions to help you write that code. We also support Studio notebooks. So if you're a notebook user, you can
Yes.
spin up a Glue Studio notebook,
Right.
and in the Studio notebook, there's a Q prompt that come up, and we'll walk through some of that as part of the demo.
Oh, you're going to show us.
We'll show some
Wait,
of those
you
things.
say demo?
Yeah, we'll
You
get
got
to it.
my, you
we'll
got my
get to it.
attention. You started losing me, but you got my attention.
You're too honest, my friend. Too honest.
I'm like the chat.
Are you?
The chat wants to see a demo.
All right, let's start with the demo then.
Let's start with the demo.
Okay. All right, let's pull up Nitin's screen. There we go. There you are. We see that beautiful pastoral.
Full screen on that, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
I love the fact that it was so organized.
Really?
Yeah.
This is the least organized.
It was very organized to me, at least.
All right. So we are in the Glue Studio. And in Glue Studio, what you see is the ability to create different kinds of jobs and notebooks. And a job is nothing but a data integration pipeline that you're creating to accomplish a business purpose. So let's take a simple example, right? Let's try to do something new. So I'm going to create a new Spark script. The Spark script comes with some standard code. I'm just going to delete that.
I was trying to read that.
So what I'm trying to do over here is I've got some data lying in S3, which
Okay.
I want to move and ingest into Redshift. And my Redshift database table that I have created, that has a column which is different from the column name of the data in S3. So I want to
Yeah.
do some renaming of column name as well.
Okay.
Almost like a schema conversion.
Schema conversion.
Okay.
There you go. So,
See, I know things.
so I'm not a great Spark developer.
Okay.
So I won't even try to write Spark code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this Q console,
Sweet.
let's start a new conversation,
Yes.
and I'm going to type something. I'm going to ask Q, write me a Glue script.
And this Amazon Q developer
Q
and it's
developers
just using the data integration with Glue. Yes.
to read data from Amazon S3, rename fields, and write it to Redshift.
And while you're doing that, I like how it kind of gives us prompts to kind of get started. Like, why can't I SSH my EC2 instance? So maybe even like someone who's having a problem or maybe getting an error using Glue or Q, using Glue, they can use Q to resolve the Glue error. Oh my gosh, I went full circle.
So I'll just take a tangent there. Q developer also has these capabilities where it can provide troubleshooting information. So if you're
It's
running into
yeah.
a problem, Q can help you analyze your problem and give you solutions on how to fix it. Now let's get back to what we were trying to do. We were essentially trying to generate a Glue Spark script.
Yes.
So we gave Q this input, and now Q is essentially going back and looking at, breaking this down into various things.
Yeah.
And before I could complete my thought, I had the code. So I'll help. Let's copy paste this code into the script editor, and then let's minimize this.
Okay.
Okay, so what essentially it did was it had some initial boilerplate code, and then it said, let's go read data from S3. This is essentially the read of the S3. And here, it's showing my path, and this is where, I would substitute it with some S3 URL that I have. Then it's saying, here is how you can transform your data fields. And, I think I remember the data field that's there on the file that I have is PU location ID, but what's there in my Redshift database looks different. PU underscore location underscore ID. So that's the mapping I'm doing. And finally, it's telling me, OK, let's write it to Redshift. I know my database name is dev. I know that my table name is public.demo table. And, this is it. 3 simple steps. Read from S3, do the transformation, write it. So this is what Q essentially broke it down. It took this whole statement I gave, broke it down into 3 steps, generated these 3 pieces of code. All these codes we have essentially made sure are syntactically and functionally correct.
Oh, wait, hold on. OK, it just connected. It just connected in my head. 3 steps, 3 letters, ETL. So you are reading, you're extracting from S3.
Correct.
You're transforming to new schema.
Yes.
And then you're loading to Redshift.
You got it.
ETL. It's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? I kind of
did. You just did. You just created ETL, I think, actually. You're the first person to ever do ETL.
To ever think of that on my own.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was pretty amazing.
Yes.
What other powers can we do with natural language processing and Q? Is there anything that maybe our builders and learners can do?
Actually, this example of ETL that we gave, this was a pretty straightforward example. There are other complicated examples where you're getting sales data from multiple clients, and you want to figure out, which client or which customer of yours is essentially giving you the most sales. So you might have data coming into S3, which is your raw data of sales, and you might have multiple customers which are in some DynamoDB database table of yours. And now you want to essentially figure out what exactly, who's my most paying customer. So here you can take data from 2 sources, and you can aggregate the data, and then load it into an engine where you can run a query. So multiple sources, multiple destinations, you can do all of that magic as well with Q.
You don't need a query engine. It's me.
It's
I'm your top buyer. I bought all of your newsletters, all your T-shirts. I'm your #1 fan.
I think.
I never saw the money.
I'm going to put this out here. AM. AM, you're not the #1 fan. AD Knight from the chat is #1 fan who says that's dope.
That's dope.
That's dope.
Okay.
We can actually make Q generate that code if he wants.
Yeah.
I think so.
Let's see it.
Hey, AD Knight, we're gonna make it even more dope for you. Okay.
Okay.
Generate that code, and while you're doing that, I was pulling up the visual ETL from AWS Glue using Glue Studio, and I have the documentation pulled up, and I think it's really cool because it says you can use a simple visual interface in Glue Studio to create your ETL jobs.
Correct.
Is that what you're using here?
I'm not using a visual interface. I'm just using the script interface.
Okay.
So the visual interface is if you don't believe in code, if you just want drag and drop.
Yep. And once we go full screen, we'll share it out to everyone.
Yes.
If you don't believe
we can go full screen.
This is troubling to me.
So, I just took an extremely long prompt, and the prompt reads, I want to read data from S3 in Parquet, select some fields. I want to read data from DynamoDB and filter some rows. And I want to join these 2 data sets and write the results to OpenSearch.
Okay.
Give me a Glue Spark script. So it's got a whole bunch of things packed in.
Okay.
And now behind the scene, Q is going to break it into individual steps.
Q's typing. I see the moving dots.
Yes.
It's like my brother typing forever at me.
But then the dots go away.
And then the dots go away, but there's never a message.
And nothing happens. Yeah. That's my favorite.
Yeah, at least Q sends the message.
Yes.
Q responded.
Yeah.
Q responded.
Thanks for not ghosting us.
And, for those of you who can see the code, it's essentially taken that train of thought of how you would think about it mentally and done it step by step.
Okay.
Reading from data source 1, which is S3, reading from DynamoDB.
Okay.
Then doing the filterings on the 2 tables, and then doing the join of bringing the data together before writing it to OpenSearch.
So it's reading multiple sources,
Yes.
and then joining the sources together, and then you could probably also do some schema conversion
You could,
in before the joins.
before the joins, absolutely.
Seems pretty really powerful
Yes.
and dangerously simple.
I think that's the whole goal, right?
Yeah.
We want people to think about the business function they want to achieve rather than trying to figure out how to write code.
The cool thing is, so we have Amazon Glue or AWS Glue that can help us do these extract, transform, and load the ETL jobs really easily, really fast, really quick from multiple data sources.
Yes.
And then into loading that data after you transform it into a single source that then is powerful for your business and your BI tools and your operations to understand how the business metrics work. And then you can do more things with your customers from the telemetry data, let's say, for example.
That's true.
And then
We're getting some questions from chat now, too.
we'll come back to that.
I think the chat trumps you. Sorry,
the
my
chat
friend.
trumps me. Okay,
Yeah,
chat, we have questions.
Yeah, listen, I think these are interesting questions. I might rephrase just a bit, but along these lines, so we are getting questions around how does Q generate the code accurately? What data sources does Q data integration generate code for? And something that you and I were talking about before we went live, I think could key into all of this too, is are there any tips and tricks that you have for writing a prompt that is getting us good, answers from Q? What in those?
You're talking about prompt engineering, Amazon Q.
Yes. In those three questions, can you at least talk about some of the how is Q doing this?
So I can talk a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes. So when you express your intent, we're essentially breaking up your intent into steps, as we said, right? And for each of those steps, we're using a combination of LLMs and code generation to generate code. One of the things that we are focusing a lot on is to essentially prevent hallucinations, where you get incorrect answers. Because with code, either it works or it doesn't work. So we've been doing a lot of work with combination of both LLMs and code generation so that you get accurate code. And today, Glue supports a large number of data sources. So we're adding support for more and more data sources as we go along. But at least for all the popular data sources, we have support inbuilt.
Okay, that's great. And are there tips?
Yes.
Like about being, like I found, the more specific you are, the things that you're asking it makes things move more smoothly. Do you have any specifically for working with Glue?
So I would say when you give your prompt to generate, let's say, code script, that prompt should be as specific as possible. Like, I'll give you an example of a prompt that's not specific. Build me a Glue pipeline to move data from S3 to Redshift. It's a very simple prompt, but what are you trying to move? Are you just trying to ingest data? Are you trying to ingest and transfer data?
Right?
Is it Parquet data? Is it CSV data? Or you don't?
Is this one time? Is it on a schedule?
Yes.
There's all kinds of specificities that you could add to that.
Not going to lie, that prompt is probably something I would have wrote. Without being very
and
specific.
you'll get guidance.
You will.
You will.
Yes.
But it's not. It may not be helpful.
Correct.
So you have to be more specific.
Without more details provided as you work with.
What kind of source format? What's your destination format?
Correct.
Yeah.
Listen, one of the things I really have enjoyed about using Q with is taking even things that Q is returning and saying, like, can you explain this block of code to me that you generated? Or can you explain this block of code that Aaron wrote to me? Do you use that with the data integration for Glue at all when you're working with pipelines? Like, we have this existing data pipeline, written in Spark Python. Can you explain, like, this block of code, what it's doing? Is that a common use case that you see?
So you're asking, can you put your code into Amazon Q?
No, it's not. It's just like necessarily like blocks of code to understand more deeply like what's happening in this.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
I do. And I think just it's very clear for like the audience and the viewers, like, should we ever put our code into an AI assistant?
Yeah, so I think right now we are not going that route yet where we take your code in and then analyze the code.
Okay.
there are considerations with regards to privacy. So
Sure.
Don't put your code into an AI assistant
Okay.
unless your company says it's okay,
yes, that is
and
true.
then you can. I don't want my hand getting slapped.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Virtual slap on the wrist. No, thank
Yeah.
you.
Sure.
And I see. So, what data sources does Q data integration generate Q code for? We covered that one. We answered that.
Yes.
And one person said, "Is this an AWS demo or another demo?" And I said, "It is an Amazon Q and AWS Glue demo."
Yes, and this is live in production. We GA'd it end of April, so anyone can use it. Anyone who has Q developer account, they can go and use this.
Okay. What do you recommend for people just getting started with this, Nitin? Where should they go to get more information?
Twitch.tv/AWS OnAir.
They're here.
Oh, right. Okay. Where else do they go?
Just go to the Glue console. Go to the Glue console and open up the Q window. And in the Q window, you can get started with asking anything. You can get started with asking, hey, I have this data. I want to catalog it in Glue data catalog. What should I do?
Okay.
You can just ask it these natural language questions, and Q will guide you. And then as you figure out what specific activity you want to do, you can go start creating these Glue jobs and pipelines. And that's where you can use the code editor help. So go to the Glue console and get started.
So I have this doc pulled up. It's a blog, and it
Okay.
talks about Amazon Code Whisperer. But we know that Amazon Q for Developer is now the thing that we are recommending people use, right? Code Whisperer is now Amazon Q for Developer.
Correct.
Okay. So if people, I'm going to do this. I'm going to drop this link in the chat because why not? I have this. So there you go. Everyone watching live, there's a link in the chat. Follow along. But this blog walks through what Nitin was just talking about. And it talks about, and also the question that AM had of any kind of best practices around prompt engineering, how you can get the most out of it. So I say we have like 2 minutes left. I'm just kind of buying us time.
Yeah, sure.
But essentially, when you walk through this, to be more specific and to be more very, very clear in your ask, it's like asking a 3-year-old to do something. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old at home. And when they were younger, actually still today, if you're not clear enough, it's like, put this thing down. They might just drop it. Right? So that's the same thing with like any kind of generative AI assistant or a companion. It's going to do exactly what you're asking it to do. If you're not specific enough, it's not going to give you what you're looking for. So some of the best practices here of prompt engineering is keep your prompt specific and concise.
Yes.
That's the first bullet.
That's right.
And additional context in prompts. So you were saying, what's the data source? What's the data source type?
Well,
frequency?
this is something, again, like I've used Q primarily in VS Code. One of the things that the VS Code extension with Q does is it can take the context of like where you are in your lines of code. Like it will highlight a line, which is why I asked earlier about like, can it explain? Because this is a common use case in the developer world, right? Of I've got a line of code right here in my code base. Like, can you tell me what this is doing? That happens all the time in the VS Code extension. So, yeah, I think giving Q context on this is what I'm asking for in the context of this larger thing is very helpful when it's prompt engineering.
You're right.
Practices.
So the context helps because if it knows that you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z, then if you provide all those details, it'll give you the right code. The other thing that helps from a tips perspective is break down what you're trying to do into small steps, and then you can give specific small steps rather than trying to give one giant blob. And that way, you will get these small snippets of code, which you can say, OK, this does this activity. Now I'm going to go get the next piece of code to do my next activity, and I'm incrementally building.
Right. Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Amazing.
So it
Simply
sounds very
amazing.
similar in the ETL pipeline world.
Exactly.
Cool.
So simple, so amazing, so simply amazing.
Well, on that note, we are at time. Nitin, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again. A wonderful demo as well. So thank you for coming on. All of you, stay here, because we'll be right back with more live from the AWS LA Summit.